Just to do a quick room reset by discussing feudalism, elitism, and then just doing like a zoom in on Pan-Africanism, right? And I'm going to just put some thoughts out there so that we can really understand part of the reasons why the room was set up and what we're really trying to delve into. Now, we know feudalism and elitism, I almost consider them two sides of the same coin. Whilst the feudalist takes his power from his right to own land and his right to sell land, the elitist takes his power from his closeness to capital, right, or his closeness to knowledge, and he considers his mentality to be a little bit more superior to that of the average citizen. So it's a socially elite class of people, and they believe that they should actually be involved in the making of decisions. Like, for example, a classic example is one of Nigeria's, somebody we can consider an elitist is somebody that tells you that his father was or his great-grandfather or his grandfather was the first ever Nigerian to get a PhD or to go to the university and stuff like that. And he uses it as his entitlement to say that he belongs in the conversations of governing this country. So that's an elitist approach, to just use my blood is royal or my intelligence is more noble than yours, and as a result, I wouldn't allow you speak. Right, so that's elitism in a nutshell. But Pan-Africanism talks about how, and it has its good sides. So no matter what you think about Pan-Africanism, we have to give the Pan-Africanists credit for the work they had done in apartheid South Africa in terms of liberating the black South African people from the white colonialists, and also just generally putting pressure on Africans to think as Africans first and all of that, and to patronize black businesses and all of that. So that's part of the Pan-African struggle. However, from an economic perspective, the Pan-Africanism has been flawed with so many challenges, so many. A typical example is financing it, right? We have a huge disparity of wealth amongst nations. So financing Pan-Africanism or an African Union has always been challenging along lines of stuff like strength of our military forces, right? We understand that some countries, even great countries like Nigeria, despite the wealth of their military in times past, has found it difficult to deal with the influx of sub-Saharan nomads that have become the bane of terrorism in the country in terms of Fulani headmen, and also we've found it difficult to put to an end an internal struggle in terms of Boko Haram, and also in terms of the impact it has had on our revenue in terms of government spending. There was a time it was rumored that Jonathan was spending 2 billion naira every day just to combat Boko Haram in the northeast and to bring it under control. So those are some of the challenges that the strength of our military forces, especially when you're fighting different cases of internal struggle, and then you're turning to bring together a team of African leaders to say we want to have one central unitary defense system, it becomes challenging. Then let's talk about technology. The African continent is one that is at different levels of technological upsprings, right? We have situations where we have advanced nations, because of their access to the coastal region, they've been able to tap into broadband internet faster than the countries in the middle of the nation of landlocked Africa, and those countries have also struggled with technological advancement because the cost of technology to them has been a bit more expensive in terms of internet penetration, because they've had to rely on satellite internet penetration as opposed to fiber penetration that we in the coastal regions of Africa do enjoy. Let's talk about language for a bit, right? Language is also another huge challenge for Pan-Africanism, in the sense that some of the most widely spoken languages in Africa do not cut across all Africans. So you have situations where, like, the Africans in the south and southern part of Africa does not really cut across up until the northern part of Africa. And then you have a situation by even in the northern part of Africa, some Islamics like Arabic dialects or languages are not really popular in some part of Western Africa. And we have not even started to talk about issues like the East African Portuguese dialect in comparison with the West African English and French dialect. So these are colonial issues, right? And language creates a huge barrier. Even conducting African nation seminars, if you've ever watched any of the live conferences, you see how language translation and interpretation actually makes the conversations very simple, very long, as opposed to United Nations hearing where English probably will be the predominant language and just a few speakers which is to speak in non-English tongue conversations, right? Another big challenge of Pan-Africanism, right, or a conversation starter is religion, right? And we even in Nigeria, we see how religion can divide conversations along ethnic lines, along spiritual lines, along even things that have to do with governance. All right, we see the role the religion is playing in Nigeria in terms of having some states infuse religion into their law. You have situations like Sharia law in some states. You have conversations that population control, when you look at how it's closely linked to religion, how some religions do permit you to have multiple wives, and then as a result you have population explosion in those regions, right? And then you have some regions where that might not really be fancy. So religion plays a huge part in in Pan-Africanism, because if you cannot get your population under control, you can barely feed them. You're a poor nation in terms of the GDPs of the country. Then it becomes a conversation that doesn't, it doesn't just go well in all sectors, right? You can compare a situation whereby the healthcare budget of, say, South Africa is about 57,000 naira in comparison to their population, and the healthcare of Nigeria is about 2,000 or less than 2,000 in comparison to our population. So those are real issues. You can look at even security and all of that. It's also that bad. So those are the challenges that Pan-Africanism do pose, and even the best of economics cannot sit down and separate these issues, because all those issues come to a big role to play in terms of unifying nations and bringing them together under things like single currency and all that. Let's talk about disparity of wealth of nations, another major challenge in Pan-Africanism, right? Let's take a context that we're all familiar with. So I won't tell you about countries you don't know. I'll just tell you about Nigeria, and then I'll try and touch on your neighbor. So Niger Republic recently is on the mind of a lot of Nigerians, right, because of our economic policy to build a train, a major infrastructure project to link Niger and Nigeria. So we're talking about the train that runs from Kano, Castina, and then Niger Republic, right? That's a very huge investment, about $2 billion US dollars in terms of spend in Nigeria's part. But you can see that Nigeria has a GDP of $430 billion, so we can afford to spend that kind of money. But the country we're taking that train to has just a GDP of about 13 billion US dollars. So it's a small country, it's a poor country, it's a country that the entire GDP is less than that of Lagos State. So it now beggars the mind about how this Pan-Africanism is going to work if I'm going to have to spend all my money to develop roads and bridges into extremely poor nations. And Nigeria is a classic case of why Pan-Africanism will fail. We can see all of the challenges of the West African currency that they tried to float up in the past, because you look at our neighbors, right? Niger, 13 billion. No, I'm not trying to shame African countries. I'm just saying where they are as a nation, right? So Niger has a GDP aggregate of about $13 billion. Nigeria has a GDP of about 430 billion. Benin has $14 billion. Togo is $6 billion. Cameroon is $39 billion. Cote d'Ivoire is $59 billion. Senegal is $23 billion. So you can see that no matter where you go around us, we're surrounded by really poor nations. It doesn't mean that GDP per capita isn't much better, their healthcare systems, or they are not better governed, for so to speak, than Nigeria. But we're talking about the economic wealth of the nation, and how if somebody is they have a constitution, a governor, a president, their own house of assemblies and things like that, and yet you want us to, sort of maybe make them, vice presidents and stuff in like a Pan-African government. It becomes challenging when you look at how, for example, the governor of Lagos State will find it difficult to support a Pan-African motion that will move him lower in the ladder of things or conversations, when he's literally pulling more weight than some of the countries I've earlier mentioned, and all of a sudden those countries will have more say in African decisions just simply because they are economically, or their states, their nations on their own. So that's some of the questions that bring about how a lot of people are saying that Pan-Africanism has its own challenges and can be deeply flawed. When we look at the strength of our supply chains, you have countries that have really advanced in terms of their labor, in terms of their laws, in terms of their finance, in terms of governance, banking, and you have situations by some other countries that are still developing. So I do not want to bore the room too much. My thoughts were just to give you some context into Pan-Africanism, into elitism, and to tell you why, in my own view, why you should just join this conversation, because we have a really, really deep and interesting, what do they call it, the scope of conversation to delve into. Some real important issues are going to be said on this stage. So I'll just like to refresh the room real quick. Welcome to Yoruba Nation. Today we're discussing feudalism, elitism, and Pan-Africanism. And we have some really great minds that are going to be really, really talking about these issues and why they don't work and all of that, and why they do work and all of that. So, but before I go any further, I think the next person on the queue is Arakuni, if I'm correct. Arakuni, I just PTR'd, and I think you are both at D. Is Arakuni there? Okay. Is Olafa Mojo there, please?
I'm here, but I'm going to be doing a bit of listening tonight. My hands are a
Oh,
bit tied up, so I will still speak, but just let me be
listen.
further down the line. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay,
oh,
Gubolio.
all right. Uncle Ade, ẹ káàbọ̀ sórí ètò ẹjọ́ ṣe máa bá a gbóhùn sókè. Is Uncle Ade there? All right, all right. Please, I just want to confirm to confirm if you are actively listening on stage. Please, can you just flash your mic so I can just identify the people who are on stage and listening? All right, thank you very much. I can see Shola, I can see Patrick, and I think Ola has spoken, right? And Olamide. All right, excellent, excellent. So let's just go with this queue for now. Like I said, the moderators don't really give a lot of. I don't like to hog the mic or on the topic. I just wanted to give a bit of context because I realized that some of the previous speakers had not understood separating feudalism from federalism, for instance, and elitism, and understanding Pan-Africanism and some of the challenges it poses to a nation. So yes, these are my thoughts, and welcome on stage. Olu, please, since you've spoken, I think I will just allow Uncle Olamide to go next. Olamide is, I don't like to preempt him because he has a lot of capitalist thoughts and is a pure capitalist. So I really look forward to him diving into this topic and just giving me an economic perspective from his wealth of knowledge. Olamide, please go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danko, and good evening, everybody. So, for me, looking at the topic, I think it's a bit, I would say, intellectually stimulating. So it's easy to pick the first two before we go to the third one because the third one is a bit not in line. But one of the things I think is very important is that we need to understand that a lot of the hustles we make, either as individuals or as group, is actually linked directly to the factors of production, which for people that were lucky to do, is it commerce now or those courses in secondary school, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. That's what the whole hustle is all about in terms of who owns what. And so when you think about feudalism, for instance, it's built largely on land. Land used to be a very critical factor of production back then when agriculture was like the in thing. So the more lands you own, the richer you are because every other person that works on your land, more or less, is your, let's say, servant or slave or whatever it is that you would want to call them. And one of the things that would also happen with time is that as time changed, that you needed less of land to get the kind of results you needed. It might reduce a bit, but again, it's still a bit that's a bit difficult. But when you then get to a point where you start having, let's say, democracy, where that gives states the ownership of land to states, so it's more or less would reduce to a large extent, anyways. feudalism tendencies. But however, these people, because of old money, they can still have access to buy more land than almost anybody in the community. So they will still be the ones giving and passing access to land to a lot of people that do not have access. So they can have a lot of land and they need to still get the poor people in the community to work on their assets, which for me, it's not the ideal, but the reality is that people need to get work done. For me, one of the more important things we should always emphasize in is that how do we make sure that as many people as possible starts to work? How do we make sure as many people as possible starts to produce? And we need to have systems where even though people don't have access to, sorry, if people don't have ownership to land, does not mean they should not have access. So we should also always learn to differentiate between ownership and access. So for me, I think that we can address. Then going a bit into elitism, which for me is also is a very so I like the way Dapo explained it in the sense that is so that is one leg to it in my opinion, in the sense that people that have relaxed royal blood or old money as well. But there's also another leg to it that people can actually break into because elitism also has to do with a lot of the effect of having created it's about social class. Let's just be clear. It's about social class. And social class is very linked to economic class because with time, if you have enough economic power, you would get social class. So it's like very straightforward, if you ask me. To get the social class, we keep they should rather let me rephrase. People that want to become elite can become elite if they are able to get access to factors of production again, and they create enough wealth and they have whatever it is they need to have. But where sometimes they then get it wrong is they limit access of people to other things. So, for instance, they can then create maybe just an example, create an estate where it is just certain kind of people that can live there in terms of social class, or create a school where it's only people in a certain class, social class that can get there. So for me, at the root cause is always ownership or access to factors of production. As long as we look for any method that makes sure that as many people as possible get working, I'm cool with it because the way you make sure that other people are successful or are not poor is that they have access or ownership to factors of production. If we want to make sure that that the poor people are treated well, for instance, and we don't give them access to production or to factors of production, then we're just more or less being political. We are going to design systems that would be taking care of them, but we also know the principle about fish teaching people how to fish rather than giving them fish. And then I'll go to the last point, which is on Pan-Africanism, which again, for me, everything is built on financial or economic power, and you need to make sure it's built correctly. What's the point of building a Pan-African society where we're all poor people? That was giving examples of how we are all irrelevant in terms of a lot of the Nigeria is a very poor country, for instance, and they're even surrounded by poorer countries. So, what is the point about bringing everybody together if the core purpose of bringing them together is not to improve our productivity? In the sense that we need to first improve our intra-African trade, because if we don't do that, we are not giving reasons to others to want to become part of us. And it links a bit to the whole argument or debate about Nigeria or no Nigeria. The question always is that for people that want to be in Nigeria or people that want to go outside of Nigeria, can we make clear economic cases on why Nigeria is better or why Odua is better, why Biafra is better? If we can't convince people on economic grounds, it's very difficult. A lot of people, for instance, today in Nigeria are going to Canada, are going to Australia, not because they don't want to see their family members in Nigeria any longer. It's because they believe they have economic opportunities in those markets. So economic situation is what drives behaviors in people. So if we keep trying to avoid conversations around making sure that we improve our economic well-being as a continent, in my opinion, I think the whole point about Pan Africanism would not come to life. It's been pushed by since the days of Kwame Nkrumah up to today. I'm not sure, apart from having AU and what else, what is the biggest biggest advantage. I'm not sure any African country has as their top trading partner another African country. It is always countries outside of Africa, and for me, that is where you get it wrong. But when you look at the European Union, for instance, and they are a very good example to use, you see clearly that a lot of the countries in the European Union are actually doing very big businesses with themselves. It's very critical. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, there are some airports. If you go to London City Airport, for instance, on Monday mornings, you actually see people flying to their offices in Paris, understand, which is another country, on the Monday morning, because they are so integrated. Because there's a reason. We must make sure that we have a reason to create an African, a one African continent. It's not emotional. Emotions don't solve any problems. It just pushes the problem forward. For us to fix this problem, economy must be at the core of whatever effort we're trying to take. Thank you very much.
Olamide,
Olamide spoke.
Olamide, thank you very much. You just made a business case for Yoruba Nation, and I know that you are not a very strong advocate for Yoruba Nation, but thank you very much for that submission. I'll tease you about it later. Shola, please, you're next on the PTR. Are you there? Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. All right, thank you so much. Um, okay, I'm going to touch on Pan-Africanism. And I would like to say that, first of all, I don't even like the idea behind Pan-Africanism. I'm not a fan of it. However, I want every African country to be successful. I want every African country to develop, to move forward, to be industrialized. But we know that it's not going to be possible for every single African countries to be industrialized. So that being said, I've always felt that the idea behind Pan-Africanism is always from a defeatist mentality. It's always more of emotions and always about the skin color. You know, it's most times is not backed with strong economic justification, and it's just always like, oh, have open borders because we have the same black skin. Like, who cares if we have the same black skin? I don't think that's the basis of happening of having open borders. I don't even think having the same black skin is a basis of trading with each other if it's not beneficial to either countries involved. And then it takes away the fact that these African countries are very, very different from each other. Even when we take Nigeria as a case study, we are very different from each other. We have problems amongst each other. How much more when we are talking about the whole African country? And it seems as if for those that subscribe to Pan-Africanism, they try to create this impression that every single African countries share the same problem, and we know that's not for a fact. The problems each African countries have varies. It differs. We don't have the same enemies. We don't have the same troubles. Some African countries, education is not a problem. They really educate themselves. Some they don't really subscribe to education like that, and so on. And so that's the reasons why I don't really like this Pan-Africanism idea. So the question is, are you saying that the white African who has been in Africa for hundreds of
Please,
years,
who is talking?
Shola?
Yes,
Shola.
please, can you make him a moderator? I would like him to join us with this conversation. Mr. Bami.
Okay, no problem. So
Yeah.
I consider it.
So I would say, are you going to tell me that the white African who has been in Africa for hundreds of years, because when you speak with many of these proponents of Pan-Africanism, it excludes any other race except black people. I've been in a room one time, and they were discussing Pan-Africanism, and then this guy said the way he praised Malema, Julius Malema of South Africa, I was so disgusted. This is a guy that has on so many occasions called for the murder of white South African farmers, and I've never seen them condemn what's it called, Mugabe. They, in fact, these people, they kind of praise Mugabe. They say, oh, he stand up to white people, and that's what I see. they feel inferior to white people. That's one of the main problem I really have with Pan-Africanists. They kind of feel like we need to stand up to white people, like we need to show you that we are equal. There's this like, no, I'm equal to you, and I just feel it's like it's stupid. And if we want to be very sincere with each other, Africanism ideals have destroyed many of these African countries, and Zimbabwe is a prime example. Yes, quite all right. They were under white minority rule. They did so many wrongs. Yes, they did so many wrong, but you cannot tell me that they destroyed the economy of the country. No. But Mugabe came in under this black nationalism ideals. No, let's take back the land, blah, blah, blah. And what happened now? They destroyed Zimbabwe. That was a former food basket of Africa. And today, Zimbabwe is one of the poorest countries in Africa. It literally destroyed that country. And you still see some of them, when they want to tell, they say, oh no, like let's say South Africa, for instance, that the prosperity of that nation is tied to white people. They're just like about maybe 80% of the population, and they control 80% of the economy, while the blacks are not measuring up as such. And so they should take away all those resources from the blacks and hand it to the from the whites and hand it to the black people. And at times it's more of just emotions. And that's why I don't like Pan-Africanism. I don't like the ideals. I'm a Yoruba man. I want us to self-govern ourselves. If we have a reason to trade with another group, with another country that will be beneficial to both of us, fine. But saying, oh, because we are black people and so we should be together, like the world is against you. No, the world is against you, not against me. I don't feel like any white man is superior to me. I don't feel cowed to any black man, any white man. I don't feel like I'm less of a person to a white person. So why would I want to subscribe to the ideas of this Pan-Africanism? So that's just basically why I don't like the ideas at all. I don't like it. I don't feel it's good for every African country. And I noticed that Pan-Africanism focus mainly on external factors. They hardly focus on internal factors. I've not seen Pan-Africanists talk about Cameroon God president who has been there over 30 years. That's not a problem to them, as long as it is black. But if you were to be a white man, you would have seen them rise up. They were not pissed at what's this guy called Mugabe did in Zimbabwe, where he killed even his own fellow black people. Took the lands away from white people, gave it to his wife, gave it to his cronies, and they literally destroyed that country. They don't talk against that, but it's just a major focus on like white people. And so the
And
question is,
also Idi Amin.
Indian sent away all the Indians, and you see that's the problem with many of them. Is when you are moved by emotions, you tend to fail, and you will fail woefully. Indian sent away all the Indians. The Indian look, some things are just fact. It's like being angry that the Jews are very astute when it comes to business. Like, are you serious? The Indians were good at business. They were doing great. They were moving the economy. But it came up with all these flimsy things that the Indians and they were not getting married to the blacks and blah blah blah. And so it sent all of them out. It said they should get out. And these Pan Africanists didn't stand up to say, oh, this is bad. So the question is, what is the fate of other race, whites, Asians that are Africans? What would be their fate under this Pan-Africanism ideals? That's just what I have to say. That's why I don't like Pan-Africanism. I feel it's just nonsense. It's just more of emotions that we are black people and so we should be together. No, we don't have the same problems. We don't have the same enemies. We have different things that affect us, and so I just feel every group should be on their own and they should work towards achieving their own ideals. So that's all I have to say.
Very much, Patrick. Thank you very much, Shola. Patrick, you're up next. Please go for it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much I have to say. I don't even know where to start. I think the concept of Pan-Africanism has been misrepresented. Many people don't really understand this concept, and you can see it being used to guilt trip a lot of people that are seeking their own country today. I think truly understanding what Pan-Africanism means, which is basically solidarity between indigenous and ethnic groups of African descent. I feel like the last speaker has not really fully grasped the meaning of Pan-Africanism. With the examples he was giving, they just did not align. I can explain. You see, when you're against Pan-Africanism, it shows a white supremacist brainwash. Let me put it that way, because there's actually Pan-Europeanism that we see today. They trade in a trading bloc. Their policies are to other white people, but when it comes to black people, it suddenly becomes a problem. I will give an example. You see, he made reference to Zimbabwe, right? Now, the Europeans and the Americans had no problem when Mugabe was killing black people. The moment he touched the white people in South Africa, they stood up. You see, Donald Trump, he has never tweeted anything about Africa, but the only tweet he tweeted about Africa was about South African farmers. So you have a pan-European approach on world politics, and to say that Pan-Africanism is about emotion, just then it means that the Pan-Europeans and all these other countries are using emotion too, if you're going by your logic. I could also give an example
Now,
of
Mr. Patrick, sorry, let
yeah,
me stop you for a second and give a perspective.
yeah,
The Europeans, before they started what you term as pan-Europeanism,
yeah.
they have made it clear that this pan-Europeanism they're doing will never corrode their right to be French. It won't corrode their right to be British. It won't corrode their right to be Portuguese. And you can see that as much as they're still doing it today, they're very respectful of their ethnic identities. Now, is that the same when people talk about Pan Africanism? And if you want to go into the history of Pan Africanism, are those people who were involved in it from the start very respectful of ethnic identities?
When I think when you look at people like Kwame Nkrumah, when they eventually got independence, there was this conversation around how to structure Africa. So should Africa be structured in a way? Should they delete this borders, these lines that the Europeans had drawn for us, or should they continue with the status quo? And when they voted, a lot of people said they wanted to continue, especially in Nigeria at the time. They wanted to just continue with the status quo. So I think at that time, when people were trying to renegotiate the borders being drawn and consider how we should be, is it along ethnic lines, religious lines, what? I think that was when Pan-Africanism was at its strongest. And if we were able to come to the table at that time to negotiate how we wanted those lines to be drawn, then we probably would have gotten a better structure at that time. But right now it's too late. And one thing we need to really understand is, how do you even actually go about that? What is the practical approach around going back around that? So those were the tough questions that these people had to deal with at the time. So their failure to actually actualize that was as a result of a lot of divisions as to opinions as to how African states should be structured. A lot of people like Kwame Nkrumah actually believed that the way the European Union was structured was the way Africa should be structured. But a lot of other presidents and prime ministers disagreed with this approach. So it all comes to who the Pan-Africanists were and what their positions were, and many of them were in favor of having a European structure that actually fed into this structure of ethnic identity that you speak about.
Pardon me, Patrick.
Let
You
me.
should also understand that by then most African
Mr.
countries have not
Patrick, have
gotten
you finished?
most.
Okay,
Are you,
No, I just
I
cut him.
I
I
thought
I
yeah,
wanted
no,
to finish.
please let him finish. Let him finish, please.
Most
no, I
countries
wanted to
were not
Olam
wait.
independent.
Olamide, please, can you let him finish, please?
Okay, so I feel like the way the countries have been structured, and a lot of talking points have been made as to, the people that purport one Nigeria are the ones that always use this Pan-Africanist approach, and that's why we get a lot of pushback. But we really have to look at the real understanding of what a Pan-Africanist mean, and it doesn't mean that you should stay in an abusive relationship if it doesn't benefit you. Pan-Africanism is also your ethnic identity. It doesn't mean there's no place that you can show me that the Pan-Africanists were in support of decimating ethnic and cultural identities or erasure of
Oh, there is Mr.
identities.
Patrick, and I hope you'll be around when I start talking. And
Okay,
I think
okay,
you took it from the center. You didn't take
okay,
Pan-Africanism from its origin. What brought about the idea? What those who had it had in mind? You took it from Kwame Nkrumah, who inherited it from Zeke, who Zeke himself inherited it from some people who had a
okay,
different. So I think, but
okay,
yes, I hope you'll
okay.
stay
I will
around
be
so we
really
can.
interested in hearing
Yes,
what you
so
have to say. However, I feel like if you look at today's society in the world, like I give real 21st century examples of how the rest of the world practice skin based, emotional based, if that's what the last speaker called it, pan-Europeanism, and I see no reason why we should do that. But I think this issue of Pan-Africanism is just taking us away from the main subject. I mean, those debates are good, but I think feudalism and elitism in Nigeria is a much more stronger concept of what is happening in Nigeria today. So if you look at the elitist perspective of a few intellectuals or a few supreme individuals, handling a lot of having access to power and control and all that. And you look at present day Nigeria, what we have in Nigeria today. So I think I would take the three major ethnic groups. The Igbos had this decentralized method of government. The Europeans, the Yorubas had this monarchical democratic way of ruling, while the Fulanis had this feudalist approach. And what we're seeing today is a backdrop of that. So if you look at the like, I always give this example. I say, if you want to know who the owners of Nigeria are, look at who the EFCC goes after. The EFCC have gone after Tinubu, just because they give you a few those houses, those cars, that money. They allow you to do that, doesn't mean that they can't take it away. So how many of these people have been gone after by the EFCC, and how many of these other people that have been in scandals have never been gone after? So that gives you a clear picture of who the elite are in Nigeria, and I don't see a lot of people from the east or the west being part of this group. So we're clearly we're positive that the feudalist system still exists today in Nigeria, and this elite this elite in this group still control what happens in Nigeria, and that's why I'm pro secession. So that I think they have shown in the past that their major concern is control, so they don't care about anything apart from control, and that's why they try to keep the structure together to continue milking this system out. But if you break that up, then it gives many people in different regions the chance to renegotiate this social contract that you have with the various regions, and this is what we don't have at the moment. I also always say this, that what Nigeria is, Nigeria is there's no clear definition of what Nigeria is. So today they can pass a different law, and things in Nigeria can change if the Fulanis and the Hausas become majority. The laws that will pass will make Nigeria an Islamic state. I tell you that this is a big worry, because I met a Turkish guy, and when I told him I was from Nigeria, he was like, "Oh, you're you're a Muslim, right? That's an Islamic country, right?" So it's already seeming that way, that we're already heading that route where Sharia will be implemented based on the population of Almajiris that have flooded the west, the east, the middle belt, they don't show signs of stopping. So Nigeria, the concept of what Nigeria is can change depending on whoever makes the legislation, the majority that make the legislation. Um, but the ethnic identities can never change. And that's why more people are more in support of one Nigeria, so that they can continue to control you to leave that ethnic perspective and approach a more globalist Nigerian perspective. So we really need to be careful as to not to forget our ethnic identities, because, like I always say, if you look at Denmark, it's the Danish that are there. If you look at so their structures, their countries are along ethnic lines, as ours should have been, but because of the way the Europeans structured Africa as a whole, we are not that way, and that's why you see a lot of conflicts. We're the most diverse group. If you have America that just has
So,
five
Mr. Patrick,
groups.
let's
Yes,
round up so everybody can talk.
yes,
But
yes,
yes,
yes.
we're gonna come back to a lot of
Okay,
conversations tonight that you'll be a part of. But please
okay,
round up and so that.
okay. So if you look at a lot of other countries, they are not as diverse as Nigeria from a both ethnic and religious point. So when we're looking at our country, we have to look at it from a lens of its peculiarity and approach it.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Very excellent submission there. Okay, I'll mute myself and I'll allow um, Auntie Buki go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever
So
you
sorry,
are.
Auntie Buki, hold on.
Oh,
Everybody, we will give. Please, let's not talk for more than 2 minutes for now. The floor is gonna open soon, and there's gonna be a lot of back and forth. But let it all go round first. But okay, so no, and that does not involve you, Auntie Buki, because you're a mod.
no problem. I'll try to be brief either way. So, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to your Nation Room. Please follow us by clicking on the greenhouse icon so that you can become a member of the room and get alerts anytime we have a program. The topic for today: feudalism, elitism, Pan-Africanism, and how it's playing its role in Nigeria. Essentially, is what we're talking today. I just want to make the comment on Pan-Africanism. I'm not going to talk about feudalism and elitism. I think we're going to have a hair full of that very soon from other people. The perspective in which Shola used to uh, address Pan Africanism, I have to say that it kind of a little bit took me as a shock because that's not how I had viewed it in the past. I've been more aligned to Patrick's take on Pan Africanism, even though I've always thought like you can never have a true Pan Africanist spirit without the nations in the continent of Africa actually redefining themselves as who they're supposed to be. But and at the same time, I don't think that the idea of Pan-Africanism, I think it started in the United States, among like African American, and I know some people are going to correct me here, but the likes of
No,
Marcus
you're
Garvey.
absolutely correct. Absolutely
Uh-huh.
correct.
So the likes of Marcus Garvey, they were prided in this idea of Pan-Africanism. Marcus Garvey, I have a lot of respect for. But when you look at that, like where the origin of Pan-Africanism, and you look at the scenario, you can kind of understand why their own idea of Pan-Africanism will be different from the way it's been subsequently interpreted in Africa. Because we're talking about people who are descendants of slaves and who were extremely maltreated in the United States. And they were kind of finding their voice. They kind of understood what it means, So you can kind of have that kind of an idea. And to them, actually, even up to today, when they talk about Africa, it's like one country to them. Because everybody over there, it's really the color of your skin. If you're black, you're African. So to say. So it's kind of funny because we're talking about Nigeria and different tribes. If you talk to an average African American person, and you're talking about the fact that you want the country Nigeria to divide, some of them will get it because they know Yoruba a lot, but some of them don't get it at all. They're like, no, we shouldn't be apart. We're one people. We should stay together. We should be, getting our families together. We shouldn't be separated. Because to them, what binds them is that color of the skin and the common experience. So it's a little bit different from us. So if a Marcus Garvey study person is looking at this, they will totally not understand what we're talking about. Because in Africa, at least in Nigeria today, they're using Pan-Africanism to to pretty much take advantage of people, for lack of a better word. They are using that as one of their argument points as to the reason why we should stay in the contraption that is
Auntie
called
Vicky,
Nigeria.
Auntie Vicky, I
Yes,
want to ask you a quick
yes.
question. I want to ask you a quick question. If you were asked to choose between a Pan-Africanism that will merge us as Yoruba people into Africa, or a Pan-Africanism that will make us relate with Brazilians and Cubans and what's about two other countries in South America that skipped my mind now. Which one would you choose of the two?
I will choose the one that marries me with my Yoruba kinsmen,
So which one is
wherever
that?
they are, on the continent of the. That's the one that is better. So
Okay.
because
All
at the end of the day, that's why I'm saying that is why in Africa they need to demystify this idea of Pan-Africanism. Because if you look at Pan-Africanism, like if you're thinking about it in an ethnocentric perspective, like European have all of these things. If you're looking at it that way, and you're just we're all black anyway, you're gonna miss the you're gonna miss a lot of things because it's really not like that's not what it should be at the end of the day. To an African American person, it could mean that black, but to the person coming from the continent and experiencing a country like Nigeria, Pan Africanism has become a tool that they're using to keep us in slavery, in internal colonization, and so, and I agree with what Shola said that it doesn't Pan Africanism. I've always thought about that. That doesn't mean that I cannot trade with somebody that is not a black person, in my own opinion. So if you're saying that to be a Pan Africanist means it's only black people you can relate with, you're not going to survive in the 21st century, because guess what? The world has moved beyond that kind of level. So I'm going to keep listening, but I think that's just what I wanted to differentiate. That Pan Africanism to an African American is different compared to Pan Africanism when it's now being applicable to Africa, and in particular Nigeria. It starts to take now different meanings now.
I did a brief summary before we started, where we talked about just a little bit of Pan-Africanism in respect to the wealth of nations. Olamiraju, I see you. Please just Just a minute. Let me just do a reset and a summary. Like I said, Olamiraj, are you there? Okay, I've muted you. All right. Fred, Babalola, I see you. You both are next. I see you, Fred. I see you, Babalola. You both are next. Please, I just wanted to do a reset. So, talk about Pan-Africanism with respect to disparity of wealth of nations. You look at Pan-Africanism, the mindset. I know that we're going to get into that much later, but it's the same conversations we have for Pan-Africanism that we can also have for the failures of federalism, right? Pan-Africanism talks about bringing everybody together under some sort of more unified system of governance where we can now share boundaries and policing and all of that. And it's the same argument that they used to put us together in Nigeria. So let's look at Pan-Africanism in terms of Western Africa. Let's assume Western Africa was the only nations that mattered. So a Pan-Africanist, a nation like Nigeria that has a GDP of 430 billion, should also be in the same country with Benin that has a GDP of 14 billion, or with Togo that has a GDP of 6 billion, or with Niger that has a GDP of 13 billion. So Pan-Africanism is like trying to merge us together. And those are the same arguments we have when we tell you about how should a state like Lagos that has a GDP or IGR of 119 billion be in the same country with a state like Gombe that has 8 billion, and then we are going to all share the national resources together. So those are the challenges that really, when it comes to disparity of wealth of nations, that Pan-Africanism actually brings to the forefront. But in terms of things like maybe trade together, speak common language, look after one another, and root out xenophobia, and then root out the one that happened in South Africa. It's keep my mind now. Yeah, so to root out things like that, Pan-Africanism seems to be strong. In any case, thank you very much for joining Yoruba Nation today. Today is going to be a very rich topic. We have some elite and erudite historians and speakers that will be doing a lot of justice to this topic. So what we're just doing on stage is to get feelers from some of the members on stage. I think next is Babalola. No, next is Fred. Fred, please go for it. 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes, please.
Don't call me.
Olamiraj, I'll come back to you. You know you left the room. I'll come back to you. Okay, it's like Fred is not there.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
here. You're still talking. I can't jump in. I'm waiting for you guys to finish your conversation.
All right, Fred, please jump in. 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, it's difficult to round up a lot of things in 2 minutes, but I do appreciate the time that I've
No,
been given.
we're still going to open the floor for a lot of talking. We're just trying to get people's perspective.
All right, that's 7 seconds out of my 2 minutes, so I'll have to
Yeah,
take
you
that
can
back.
reset. You can reset. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to start by saying it's an honor to be part of this group. And it's really awesome seeing the decorum that has been displayed and the knowledge that is being shared. Now, having said that, I'm more leaning to talk about Pan-Africanism, which is a huge topic. Why? Because if Pan-Africanism existed, or if it's established, I think that is a solution to a lot of problems that Africa is facing. Now, why do I say so? Let me start from the economic point of view, which the last speaker said when he spoke about the GDP of each country and saying that as a point why Pan-Africanism cannot exist. Now, to counter that, not that I'm singling out you, if you research the amount of revenue that goes out of Africa every year, you'd realize that what you are stating as the GDP of each country as being a factor why Pan-Africanism cannot exist is void. Take, for example, 2006, 15.1 billion worth of gold from Africa out. Now, you want to talk about the copper, you want to talk about the cocoa, you want to talk about other natural resources that are being stolen literally under the noses of our leaders and our people and going out of Africa. Now, imagine that mentality of Pan-Africanism is embedded in each leader that leads the country, each citizen, each person that calls his name African. That mentality is to ensure that such things do not exist. The natural resources and the money and the people and the humans that can contribute to development in the first place remain and develop Africa to a point where
Please speak up.
If you can't hear me, it's not me. It's probably the algorithms that are reducing my voice. This is an issue I face constantly on Clubhouse.
Oh, yes,
When
we're
I
just trying to hear you. Sorry.
Okay. So with a mindset of Pan-Africanism that seeks to withhold the export of natural resources that is being stolen from Africa, that remains in Africa and contributes to the development of its people and its infrastructure, that is an advantage to Africans in the first place. That is in the economic side. By the way, the existence of ECOWAS in the first place is a proof that Pan-Africanism works. Now, I want to say this, that although Pan-Africanism started as a theory, there has been a consistent evolution.
Fred, can you just round up in 30 seconds, please? You've just 3 minutes.
All right. There has been a constant evolution of Pan-Africanism that has taken the several divisions into ethnicity into consideration, and that is reflected in our daily life as our cultures are celebrated past the imposed boundaries. You go to Ghana, you see people talking about jollof rice. You see people sharing their cultural stories. They're wearing traditional outfits. You go to the Guinea and other African countries. There are teeny tiny elements of Pan Africanism.
All right, Fred. I think I really appreciate you.
Oh,
I think we'll come back to you.
Right.
Definitely once this is like so the way the room is running, so we are having a pre lecture where we just like basically greet everybody on stage, welcome, how was your flight? Then we have the introduction of some of the speakers, right? And then we have the actual lecture, and then we have an interactive Q&A session, mostly comprising how we get to rub ideas with the different parts of the lectures that we agree or disagree with, and then we'll take appreciations and close the room. So that's typically how this conversation runs in Yoruba Nation. So the early speakers necessarily were just to get your thoughts, and I understand that I was not regulating it as per time before, but let's just move on very quickly. Olamiraju, I see you are back. Would you be able to give us your thoughts in 2 minutes? We're just having a pre-conversation. After Olamiraju, I'll come back to you, Babalola. I'm so sorry. Olamiraju was ahead of you on the PTR. Thank you. Olamiraju, please, 2 minutes.
My apologies. Let us throw Pan Africanism inside the dustbin so that we don't confuse ourselves. The the struggle of black people is not in the hands of anybody. You have to position yourself in the world stage before you can start you can start fronting for other people. I think this notion of Pan-Africanism in Africa is being misquoted in Africa because I think it started from people in America. So for them to be liberated in some sort of problem they find themselves. But in an African space, it's quite different. You see that even though Nnamdi Azikiwe was the person that gave Kwame Nkrumah the idea to come and study in America, when he came back, I know as humans, we always feel like, okay, is it not this guy? Blah, blah, blah. When he came back, he was talking about Pan-Africanism. And as at that time, we should understand that it can't work because most of those African countries then have not had independence. I think it was around early or mid-60s because he was ousted out by a coup by Ankara, or what's his name, in 1965 or 66.
Do you want to round up, please? 30 seconds. Thank you.
So let everybody face their battle. A lot of people in Africa are now educated. They won't want to listen to a Nigerian person telling them that, okay, let us have this Pan-African. They will think you want to enslave them. So there's no monkey in Idori anymore. Everybody don't wise. So let us just pray.
ẹ ṣe púpọ̀ ẹ ṣe púpọ̀. Uncle Babalọlá mi ò mọ̀ bóyá ẹ wà ń bẹ̀ ṣe lè bá a gbóhùn sókè.
Hello, good
Yeah,
evening,
ẹ jọ
everybody.
fún ìṣẹ́jú
Um,
méjì. Yeah.
okay. First and foremost, I would like to talk about Pan-Africanism. The concept itself should not just be discountenanced because some other people have weaponized it to, hold Nigeria into what it is right now. The idea of Pan-Africanism, was birthed from the US, of course, with people like W.D. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey and people like that. But what we should look at is the fact that it came about as, a response to what was going on at that time, which was the effects of colonization, slavery, and the treatment of black people in the diaspora, America particularly. And of course, that had an effect on the continent itself and the way the people of the continent might be exploited. So to discountenance, it is to discountenance all the work that those people have done. However, like I said, even the movement itself has changed over the years. It went from the recognition of a unified approach of the Black and African people to world views. It has gone from that to the economic integration and economic and political integration of everybody, which is not feasible. So there are two different things. There's the idea of let's unify and speak with one voice against oppression. And then it has evolved into the idea of let us unite everything and fuse everything together and just force ourselves together, which is a different thing entirely. For instance, of course, I mentioned Marcus Garvey and the proponents. The idea of Pan-Africanism is actually what led to the creation of the Organization of African Unity, which is presently African Union right now. Ghana held, I think, the first conference, I think Pan-African conference, before it went to Ethiopia and Addis Ababa and other countries. So we shouldn't discountenance it because some people have weaponized it. That's my own.
Sorry,
That's my
can you speak up, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please
Yes.
speak up.
I said I actually have the mic in my mouth.
I can't hear him all.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Your voice went backward a bit. Yeah. Could you just continue your submission? You have about 30 seconds left, please.
Okay, I said we shouldn't discountenance it. Discountenance and mechanism because some people have decided to weaponize.
Excuse me, I cannot hear Babalola.
Yeah, I
Can
also.
everybody
Okay,
hear
I
him?
think I'll
I
yield.
can't hear.
I'll have to yield.
I can't hear you. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. All right. I believe we've taken everybody on stage, and if you like to speak and we've not taken you, can you flash your mic?